I think I've gotten in touch with what my little unique genius zone is, and I say little on purpose, right? So it's all about hanging out with people that are smarter than I am. So in my world, I've got a great visionary profile, kind of off the charts visionary profile, but I'm certainly not the guy to go set up base camp, right? So it's about aligning myself with the pieces of the business that are ultra critical, where I can kind of come in and be the tornado and throw all these ideas out, and then you got the people that can be the implementers and integrators behind it.
All right, guys, here we go now. It is time to unlock more doors to deals. We're real estate investors here. We're real estate agents here, and we all have one thing in common. We believe that we can live the life of our purpose. We can create financial freedom. We can build a better life for those that we love, and we can live the life of our dreams. I don't care if you're trying to do your first deal or your 500th this year. You can get to the next level, and we're here to help. Welcome to Doors to Deals. I am your host and founder, Jim Manning. Today's episode can be found on doorstodeals.com/022. And I interview a fellow Three Doors Network member named Bob DeClue. This guy, simply put, is the definition of a rainmaker. The guy does a tremendous amount of deals and has generated an incredible amount of revenue ever since I've known him the past 3+ years. Bob at one point actually even joined the Three Doors team as one of our deal makers and doubled the revenue bar that anyone had ever hit in a single year. So we're literally talking millions of dollars of revenue generated over the past couple of years of us doing deals together. So anyway, Bob specializes in turnkey investment, and it's a great vehicle to be able to flip properties and do a lot of deals with a little bit more security on the exit than what traditional flips will provide for you. He's a wealth of knowledge and definitely an expert at what he does. So let's get right into this. All right, Bob, welcome, buddy. It is good to have you on this week's interview. So, for those of you that don't know Bob, there's a lot of y'all in the group that are on this live call. Bob is, we've been friends for I think at least 3 years now. It's hard to kind of tell, and Bob is a wealth of knowledge. He's done hundreds and hundreds of deals over the years, and lately he's been kind of gravitating, getting more and more into turnkeys, and is really becoming a expert in that space. And I'm fortunate and blessed to call Bob a friend of mine. I think you are an amazing individual, and I'm really thankful that you're hopping on this call. So Bob, can you kind of introduce yourself to those of you that don't know Bob, and just give it the background a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I kind of come by the real estate game. Honestly, I grew up in it. And my parents started off in the retail side of the business, and they owned Century 21 offices, and they really got into the investment side probably my teenage years. So it wasn't uncommon for me in the summers when my high school years, I'm out there swinging a hammer and helping my dad run crews and this, that, and the other. And I really got into real estate full time, did the whole corporate gig after college for a while, and really got into it full force in 2002. We started a franchise system here for our business, and ran that through the fiasco that was 2007, 2008, and by about 2010, just realized that probably didn't fit our business model anymore. It's really about that time that, I had going through that 2007, 2008 downturn in the market. We were very heavily focused on wholesale. In fact, that's how I met Ryan. I wholesaled him some houses back in those days. We did some rehab. We had a lot of rental. And that was just kind of our model. And what we found was happening was once that market slowed down, which was very abruptly, our buyers list started to dry up, on the wholesale side. The guys that were out there still buying were buying for less. The retail model, I think we had kind of zeroed in on what that looked like, but that's still, I kind of recognized that wasn't necessarily 100% of what we wanted to do. And I had written this business plan or vision or whatever you want to call it for this turnkey model. I did sell off quite a bit of our rental portfolio to some East Coast buyers at the time that had gotten introduced to me through that franchise system. And just like, this makes a lot of sense. So along comes 2010, and I met a gentleman. He was a big 7-figure executive here with a company in town, and he's like, I got cash sitting around. I know I need to start to diversify into real estate. I think now is a good time to do it, which of course we had talked about where the market was from a pricing standpoint. So sure enough, I started buying houses and renovating them and putting tenants in them. And, fast forward 7 years with that gentleman, and we had done 30 some odd properties. And he comes to me one day. We were actually standing in a house we were rehabbing for him. And it's like, I got to tell you something. He's like, I'm retiring from my corporate job. And it's really these real estate investments that we've done together that's allowing me to do that. And he's 53, 54 at the time. So that was kind of my really big light bulb moment. And we had picked up some other turnkey clients kind of along the way that at that point in time, we weren't doing a whole lot of volume, maybe 15 to 18 a year. And we did some retail stuff, and we did a lot of this turnkey stuff. So that's kind of how the whole turnkey business started. And it's really these last few years kind of steamrolled into something more substantial than that. And but I think the overarching point of having this strategy or this tool in your tool belt, if you will, it was having that extra exit strategy, which I think would have made a big difference in 2007, 2008. Following all that, simply from the standpoint that you're going to see a lot of investors hitting the markets. Your other financial markets get more challenged, and more money tends to pour into real estate. It's crazy the demand that's out there right now for good investment product, and I only see that growing if we see, everybody keeps talking about the impending downturn. I think you'll see more and more money flying into real estate.
So Bob and I are both in agreement on this, and there's a couple. I'm going to pull out a quote on you guys here. So Wayne Gretzky has a quote that says, "I skate to where the puck is going." And the thing to realize, guys, about any real estate market is it's anywhere from 2 to 23% of the deals on the real estate market are investor deals, as is deals, cash deals. Back in 2008, when the market tanked and all the short sales were coming up, it was at 23% of all deals. The last couple of years, as the market's really heated up into a seller's market, it's really been at 2% of the deals. So I don't care whether you're like an agent or you're an investor, you name it. As the market shifts, it's nice to be in a place where you can match the market of the moment. And so Bob and I are both aligned on this, is that we see a lot of people have money. They do really well at their jobs, whether they're business owners or doctors, lawyers, attorneys, you name it. And when the stock market, when a recession hits and everything gets unstable, they look for secure ways to protect their money and to protect their assets. And there's a lot of money that traditionally we found that gets moved into real estate at that point. So what Bob just said there, what he's kind of alluding to is just that. So as the market shifts, when it does, we don't know when it's going to. It could be 5 years from now, who knows? But as it shifts, and as is inventory and deals like that start to go up, there's going to be a money shift as well into real estate. So this is a huge diversification strategy for you in changing environments. So I just went on a little tangent there, Bob.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head, though, and it's just like we need to diversify and niche our business on the acquisition side. I think you really need to look to do the same on the exit side. The more, obviously, if you can build demand for your rehabs before you ever buy them, you're in a really good spot. And
So,
we're seeing FHA lending tighten up on the retail side. That's going to put some compression on sale prices, particularly in your your more challenging markets. So yeah, there's a lot of things that factor into that, and that tends to be good turnkey inventory.
so you were, when did you start investing again? What year were you?
Well, we never stopped investing.
When did you, like, what was the year you started, like when you're starting to do a high volume in the home investor days?
Well, that was 2002.
So 2002 to 2007 or eight, I mean, you were doing 100 deals a year or whatever it was, right? Right around there.
Yeah, we were up around 100, 150 deals a year.
Yeah, and turnkey really wasn't something that you didn't start till like 2010.
Correct.
So when the market shifted, um, I mean, kind of, let's talk about that a little bit for your business. Like, you're doing the high volume of business, and the market shifted. Take me through that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the wild, wild west out there. There's a lot of bank overreaction. I was very leveraged with the banks at the time. And so we muddled our way through, and learned a lot of lessons along the way. And I think that was the diversification on the exit side was certainly, one of the biggest takeaways for me was, not having all your eggs in one basket. We were very heavy on the wholesale side, just because of the volume we were buying. We kind of had to be, and to me, it didn't make any sense to have all of our eggs in one basket. So that's kind of where, again, the whole concept kind of sprouted, and we ran with it through there.
Okay, so so here's a question for you. What's the most difficult obstacle you've had to kind of face in real estate so far?
Yeah, for me, it was right around that same time frame. We had gotten involved in a commercial deal. Unfortunately, the seller wasn't real forthcoming on financials. There was a lot of fabrication of leases and things like that. So that was certainly my most challenging time. That was the, I would say, first major acquisition we did on the commercial side. And, again, great learning moments. Wouldn't be where I'm at today without that. So you just take those lessons and you run with it. But that was most definitely the most challenging thing we faced.
So how'd you kind of get through it, or like when you're dealing with it, like what was your mindset around it?
Well, mindset's always a challenge when you're in those, going through those kind of times, right? So you continue to, I think, for me, it was staying in front of other people. We had a great support system kind of around that franchise, and that's kind of where I got hooked into, all right, well, do we want to be this heavily leveraged, right? So we started selling off pieces of the portfolio. We did come to terms on that commercial deal, and we got ourselves through that. So more importantly, I think it really diverts your focus in a lot of ways. So that's, I think, where you got to still keep your eye on the prize, and just know things are going to shift. So if you can have, some of the answers to those shifts already in place when the next shift happens, then I think that's the key for everybody to bear in mind.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons why, just to give you guys some context on that question, why I really wanted to ask Bob that is Bob's been through a lot of trials and obstacles, and there's like a pattern I see when you have people that get really creative and resourceful on solving and getting through it, whether it's through it, above it, around it, under it, crawling under it, you name it. And if we can learn how to think like people that are doing things at a massively successful level, and we can learn how to ask the right questions, like similarly of what they're doing, then we can kind of get the same results, because it all starts with in between the ears, and then the actions that we do every single day. So So when you go through obstacles, like let's not talk about the biggest obstacle. Let's talk about like something that you're facing right now. That's just kind of a sticking point. Like, do you have a process to kind of get through and to figure out a solution, or how do you go about that?
This is going to come across a little touchy feely, so take it for what it's worth. But I think the biggest thing for me on mindset is really that morning routine that I follow. It's getting it's meditating, it's prayer, it's those kind of things that help keep me centered every day. And ultimately, the space between our ears is what makes problems much worse than they ever are, or 99% of the time they are. So staying true to that just kind of makes obstacles, they just don't seem like that big of a deal. Whereas I would say earlier in my career, those big obstacles would seem like these impossible mountains to climb, instead of just recognizing it for what it is and chunking it down one step at a time, right? So I think it's visualizing your outcome and staying true to it, right? We're all going to get knocked around the path a little bit. So man, I'll be honest, that as corny as it sounds, that's it. I think staying in front of a support group, I'm in a few different masterminds now. So for me, that's extremely helpful too, to have somebody to go say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. What do you guys see? And getting that second, third, and fourth and fifth set of eyes on it. So it doesn't matter if it's our Three Doors group here, if we can be that resource for each other, or a mastermind group or whatever it is. Just make sure you've got that group of people that have, we've all had some sort of splat in life, right? So that can help you kind of see your way through it. Flash a little light in the dark, if you will.
Were you always able to? So I always remember my childhood days. Like, this was before GPS. I'd be watching a sitcom, and there'd be little bits on sitcoms about how the guy never wanted to ask for directions, and the wife was getting mad at the guy for not just, why don't you stop asking for directions?
Right.
Did you always ask for directions, or earlier in your career, or were you kind of try to figure it out all on your own?
Oh yeah, no, I was definitely the try to figure out on my own guy. And I got better and better, I think, as we progressed through it all. But at first I thought I had to control everything, and frankly, we're not in control of anything, right? So it's a lot better to kind of let it go. And again, if you've got that support system around you, and you're staying true to some of those things that keep your mind in the right place, I think that's the key to it all.
Yeah, what's interesting, guys, is what I've found is there's a strength and there's a strength in vulnerability, right? Like to be truly vulnerable and like admit that you need help, admit to make the question, like it takes a lot of strength. I mean, when I first started out, guys, like I was so scared of people not thinking that I knew anything about real estate that I tried to study and not really talk to anybody for like 6 months of it. And until I started talking to other people and like getting out there and networking and doing deals, I wasn't doing anything. I was just trying to feed my own ego and my sense of need for significance, and trying to, not have to admit that I was a rookie and I didn't know anything, so.
Yeah, no, and I think we all do that, Jim. We all go through that, and that vulnerability is so critically important, I think, not just in our lives, but as we lead our teams. I'm reading a book on that. I just finished reading a book by Brene Brown called Dare to Lead. It's incredible book to read for anybody that's leading in any capacity. Talks about this very concept. So book nugget of the day. Highly recommend it.
Okay, so let's kind of transition just a little bit. So I want to give you guys some context on this from Bob's standpoint. You've become, whether you want to admit it or not, you've become, like, as far as reaching out to people, connecting, networking, building important relationships for your business. I believe you become a master at this. So Bob came into, was working with us on our team, and I hope you're okay with me sharing this, but in the first it wasn't the first 6 months, but from months 12 to 24, he helped generate over $900,000 in revenue, plugging in and kind of like partnering with us on stuff and kind of plugging into some of the systems, and just kind of like specialize on kind of doing what Bob does best. And then you've just historically done that. You've brought in Tony now kind of on your buy team, and I think you're doing stuff with Chris over at Radius. Like what do you do? So I mean, I think you kind of are developing like becoming the master of like leveraging other, taking advantage of partnering with people. Kind of like walk me through through this kind of process of how you kind of attract and get some of the right people around you, so you kind of drive revenue and build things to the level that you've been able to build it.
I think I've gotten in touch with what my little unique genius zone is, and I say little on purpose, right? So it's all about hanging out with people that are smarter than I am. So in my world, I've got a great visionary profile, kind of off the charts visionary profile, but I'm certainly not the guy to go set up base camp, right? So it's about aligning myself with the pieces of the business that are ultra critical, where I can kind of come in and be the tornado and throw all these ideas out, and then you got the people that can be the implementers and the integrators behind it. So that's certainly been a big part of what we've been able to establish here recently, is just having that those integrators in my life. Some of it through strategic partnerships, some of it through just more working relationships. But yeah, I think that's uber critical for us to all understand kind of our profile, if you will, and where our strengths lie, and what can we do to build a team around us that kind of play to our weaknesses.
So are you, so as far as profiles go, Mike McCloskey, PI, I know we both do that. Do you have any other kind of assessments or profiles that you recommend?
Man, honestly, I've migrated 100% to that one, because I'm a big believer in it. And I've been around the profiling piece for years and years and years, and that's by far the best one I've seen. So it's kind of what I've latched on to, and really, we've integrated that through our whole organization now. So down to our construction managers and whatnot, they're all, we've got them all profiled. We can really, it makes it so much easier to identify their behavior patterns and why they do what they do. And more importantly, it's just trying to get everybody in the right seat on the bus.
That's easier said than done. Like, we've been trying to get on the right seat of the bus this whole time, but it's amazing when you get everybody in the right seat of the bus and make improvements there. Do you okay, so getting everybody in the right seat of the bus, how do you feel like your business is right now on that? Like, do you feel like you have a lot of people kind of dialed in and rocking and rolling?
Yeah, our buy team, we've got 4 Mavericks on our buy team, so we have to kind of recognize that for what it is, right? But we have brought in a great support team around them to kind of offset that. So we're starting to see some pretty good results there. We've done the same thing in the construction business now. So we have moved some people around, trying to get, who should be leading teams, who should not be leading teams, so on and so forth. And we're working on integrating that now into the turnkey business and identifying the same thing. So I hope I got your question answered there, but it's an ever moving target. But, I think if you go into it, utilizing that structure, it's ultimately about serving people. And if we know we can get somebody in a position that really suits their core talent base and what's really going to make them happy, well, then they're going to be much more happy and productive in what they're doing.
So it's ultimately about serving people. Tell me more on that. Like, is that across the board? Kind of like when you talk with a homeowner or doing the turnkey client, like, is that part of your vision?
I mean, 100%. It's, if you're chasing money, I call that commission breath. It's never a lasting thing. It's always about, if we're in front of a homeowner on the acquisition side of the business and we're truly not a fit, well, okay, let's let's try to get them out to somebody that can help them and service them in whatever need. I mean, we're certainly not the end all be all for every home seller out there, and we just have to recognize where we do add value and where we can serve people, because in that realm, I think that's where we can create a successful transaction across the board, right? We're not here to browbeat people into selling us their homes at a discount. It doesn't make sense. What we are here to do is serve people. So if it means we're going to get them aligned with somebody else that can help them in a manner that we just doesn't make sense for our business model, then we serve them, and we can always go back around from that. We just bought a house here a couple of weeks back. That was a referral of somebody that we didn't buy a house from, but felt enough about what, in this case, Tony was able to do and just trying to take care of them that, they had come across somebody else and said, this is the guy you got to call. So that's a big testament to what he's been doing. He's been doing this a long time. We're doing this a long time together. So, all the credit to him.
So yeah, walk me through kind of like your all's kind of sales process when you go out to a property. Like what's kind of how do you normally do that?
Well, we're tried and true around the Sandler process as far as the sales system is concerned. I don't know that we do it a whole lot differently than everybody else, but I think what we do invest is a lot of time. We try to understand the story. We try to really bring out what, for lack of a better way to say it, what their true pain is around this problem. It's always about a problem around the house, right? In this case, we happen to deal in real estate, and is it an inheritance, or is it a financially distressed, physically distressed, whatever the situation may be? And I think from there, it's really just drawing out, is there enough pain in them being in their current situation that's going to outweigh taking a discount on the house, or is there not? And if you can get to the answer to that question, then it becomes pretty easy. And we're not spinning our wheels trying to chase somebody around that doesn't want to be chased. And we can get on to really helping the people that need to be helped, and that we can help, and then certainly trying to guide everybody else down the road and get them in front of people that can help them. But I can't tell you other than we've got you've seen the Sandler training at work. I think it's pretty robust, and we've got a kind of a version of that we utilize in our business, and it's been really successful for us. It's something we've been doing for years and years, and I think continues to pay dividends as far as helping people get to the reality of, can we help them, or are we just not the solution?
Yeah, or you're not the solution.
Yep. Or in some cases, it's maybe we're not the solution today, and that's where the whole follow-up piece comes in. We got to stay extremely married to that. So we have somebody on our team now that's their focus, is making sure that follow-up never misses a beat, right? So
I just Sandlered him and he didn't realize it. Sandler's it's a bunch of questions, right? And one of the ones that we don't realize is so darn effective is when you just mirror somebody and you kind of repeat the same thing that they just said in a question format. And you'll be amazed at the amount of information that they then just continue on doing. So I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I mirrored you and then you kept talking for another 20, 30 seconds on it. But I think the key is though, guys, it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't really matter what sales technique you're using. There's a lot of ones out there. I think John Martinez is one that's really well known as well. If you come into it from a heart of, if you don't come into it from a heart of service and trying to give value and trying to help the individual out, people are really smart about that. They'll kind of they'll see you for what it is. And if you don't have that rapport and trust, they're going to end up moving on to the next person because they'll run into somebody else where they kind of feel more of a connection with. And it's amazing. I mean, Bob, and our kind of tenure of doing all the deals that we've done together, there's been several times where you've kind of mentioned, hey, well, I bought the property for a few grand less than the next guy. And I think Bob just has this knack of being able to connect, build that rapport, build that trust to such an extent that price doesn't even always come into play. Sometimes it does with some people. I get it, but how you do that is God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? ask the questions, listen, truly find out what's going on, and then you can help once you actually know what's going on in their world. I mean, I love the analogy that Bob, we've talked about this before, but like a doctor, like if you go into a doctor, you don't, they don't just like write you a medication. They ask you like 100 questions, like, oh, how are you feeling? What's going on? Like if a doctor just wrote you a prescription without asking you questions, it's called malpractice, right? So being able to kind of dive deep into it. So
yeah, and it's a great analogy too, right? And we don't always realize our pain, right? And then the doctor holds that stethoscope up and gets a real worried look in his eyes, and we start sweating, right? We start saying, "Oh, cow, what's he seeing?" And sometimes people need that little nudge. Sometimes they're in denial of a situation and it's really trying to bring, to your point, utilizing those what we call pain funnel questions, but asking the right questions to help them realize, do they really have a pretty serious scenario here that we can help them out with.
What type of time commitment do you spend on your homeowner appointments?
Oh gosh, Tony's probably averages 2 hours an appointment. But I would say majority of our team is very similar because they are, I call them maverick profiles, but they're high ABs, to stay with that predictive index vernacular. So, yeah, I mean, spend tremendous amounts of time and even in the follow-up process. And, we're getting deals over the finish line that I think is 100% just the result of their continued follow-up too. So I can't lose sight of that. But, yeah, I guess I'm sorry, I got a little off track there.
Oh, you're okay. So I know we're going to get to more on Turnkey in a minute, guys. But one of the reasons why, just so you all know, one of the reasons why I really wanted to ask Bob about this, because and his unique genius zone is actually being in front of a homeowner and talking to them and negotiating deals. He is incredibly gifted at that. So I wanted to make sure we at least talked about that a little bit for everybody. So as far as the follow-up process goes, what do you typically do on that? Like if you get them to where they say, "Hey, I'm not ready yet to sell," what do you go into? What do you go into after that typically? Like how do you handle that? Hey there, if you're looking to get the ultimate edge for your real estate investing company, go to doorstodeals.com/invest for more information. Just so you know, a high percentage of the people that we interview on this podcast are actually already Three Doors Network members. And our network members have a lot of extra resources. They have access to an online training vault with over 3 years worth of content in it. They have access to vendor savings like our Home Depot discount that's literally saved thousands of dollars for members. And we have a weekly group coaching call, and we have a lot of other great things as well as part of the Three Doors Network. So make sure that you check it out on doorstodeals.com/invest. You get them to where they say, "Hey, I'm not ready yet to sell." What do you go into? What do you go into after that typically? Like, how do you handle that?
I'll be honest, I'm terrible at follow-up, right? I'm off the charts D on the other side of the spectrum. I'm not a detail guy. I have somebody that has automated a lot of the follow-up process and stays very accountable to making me accountable to picking up the phone when it needs to be picked up to do that follow-up. We've done that for our entire team across the board. And, that's a big part of what this person does every day is just chase us around and make sure that we're doing what we need to do. I think automating as much of that as we can. Jim, I know you've been down this path too. So, it's been a game changer, especially with Tony, who was always the same way, right? He's got a very similar profile, not strong on the follow, but having that support system in behind him will force him to every day to get in, do his follow up, so he can get that checked off his list, and he moves on. So, but it's just like anything else. He blocks that time every day, and it happens before anything else happens.
So on the priority list, follow up is kind of like the number one priority, whatever the follow up calls are for the day.
Yeah, I don't have exactly. I don't have the statistics, but 90% of deals in our space are going to come from follow up. We may do a little bit better than that on the front end, but majority of your deals are going to come from follow up. So if you factor in that, willing to bet that 85% never make it past contact 3 or 4. They just kind of give up and go on to the next shiny object. So I think the key in any business, really, on the front end of any business, is being the guy that's going to make that 9th and 10th and 12th contact. And some of these, especially when you're dealing with like probate type, work, that that sales cycle is going to be a lot longer. So I think it's just preparing yourself around it. But, and more importantly is when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You got to have that integrity to follow through with it.
Okay. So walk me into that. So what do you say to the homeowner as far as follow-up goes? And then like after you said, so tell me more about that.
Well, I think when you're in front of the homeowner, it's all revolves around what the term we use is upfront contract.
Okay.
So you need to be doing that several times throughout any meeting with a homeowner, and that last meeting is going to set firm next steps around, well, this is what we're going to do next, and this is what it looks like, right? And you're getting their buy-in through every step of this. You're giving them permission to say no, but they're going to take that walk with you to set those firm next steps, and be amazed that people will follow through and do what they say they're going to do.
Okay, so take me through, like, at the end of it, if you submit the offer and they say, no, I'm not ready yet, like, how would you set up that upfront contract for the next step? Like, what would you do?
Well, I'll make the argument that we probably shouldn't be submitting the offer unless we know it's going to be a yes, right? But it happens, right? We turn right in the process sometimes. But yeah, I think it's getting back in control and back in front of the process. Okay, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? And start asking those questions and kind of redrawing out the pain of their current situation. So what's it cost them to stay in their current situation? But honestly, before the offer should be the last thing you're doing. I mean, all these other steps should be in place before that. And I think that's the difference in a good sales system versus what I'll call more of a traditional sales system, where we just show up and we present and we leave literature behind. We can give them a number, then we spend our time chasing them around, in voicemail jail, if you will. So I think it's just taking a purposeful approach so that you're not kind of in that kind of a mode in the sales process, because it's very common and it's very easy to kind of never know where you really stand.
Okay, so let me ask you a better question. When follow-up is needed, so let's say you hold off on the offer because they're just not ready yet, you find that out. How do you set that up? Like, what do you do?
Well, it goes back to that upfront contract, so you're getting commitment on what those next steps are. You're giving them permission to say no. And, you're kind of reaffirming the importance of, hey, we said we're going to talk on Tuesday at 3:00. Let's make sure we're both there. I'll have everything ready to go that I told you I'd have ready to go. And then that's the next step, right? It's always leading off and setting firm next steps before, if you're ending that meeting with, hey, I'll follow up with you here by the end of the week. Right, you just got shot. You're just a highly paid consultant, and you've given them a number to go run and shop with, right? So when we show up with an offer, it's really with the expectation that we're there to sign a contract, and ultimately, again, we are servicing people, right? Because they're not going to sell us a house at a discount unless we're helping out of a situation that's causing more pain than taking a discount on the house. I'm not trying to skirt your question, but I hope I'm answering it.
I think you got there. Yeah. So, I mean, really, guys, yeah, setting the next step. So like in the case of follow-up, if you are in that follow-up train, and if you do the sales process right, you hopefully try and avoid that, right? But if you're in that situation, and you give them a call, um, like even if you leave a voicemail, you can say, "Hey, I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Wanted to follow up, see if you still needed help with your house. Um, give me a call back. Happy to help any way I can. If I don't hear back from you, just to let you know, I'll touch base."
Sorry, guys. I'm stuck here at the house, so dogs do something.
I'm gonna unmute him just for a second. So just to let you know, I'll give you a call back in 2 weeks from today. So it's Wednesday. I will call you back in 2 weeks, the following Wednesday. So like when he says upfront contract and trying to kind of always set that next expectation, that's so critically important, because then 2 weeks from today I can call back again, and now I can bring it up again, and I can say, "Hey, I just let you know, 2 weeks ago I told you that I'd call you today. Today, wanted to let you know that I'm just, I'm doing what I told you I would do, and just kind of following up. Want to see if there's any way I can serve you, anything I can do at all to help you out." And I think I'm going to unmute Bob now. Hopefully the dog is. But anyway, so what happens is when you make a promise, that's a subconscious thing and people aren't necessarily aware of it. But when I make a promise and then I fulfill that promise, that's a huge amount of rapport and trust. If I tell someone I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, that damages credibility and that damages trust. And when you, especially in the case where you have someone trusting you with purchasing their home, that's a big asset. Like you really have to do everything you can to get into rapport and get into trust. And when you take the time to actually bring it back up to them that, hey, I fulfilled my promise, that's important too, is to kind of remind people of what you're doing, because they may not even remember it if you don't bring that up. So did I do an okay job there on the upfront contract, Babo?
Yeah, I mean, but something to keep in mind, and we all do it. We all turn right from time to time. If you are in that voicemail place, you're probably behind in the process. You probably turned right somewhere. So just bear that in mind. And I'd be happy to come back sometime and really kind of do a truncated training on the upfront contract, because I think it's probably the second biggest part of that whole sales training system is that. Be happy to do that sometime.
Cool. Okay, so let's kind of transition a little bit into turnkey. So one of the, so as far as like if you're like an investor or an agent, what is important about having kind of turnkey as a tool in your tool belt? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I can confidently say that I can sell more houses than I can ever buy. Because we've established those relationships and offering enough value in our product. I don't look at turnkey as a transaction business, which I think there's a lot of people out there that view it as that. You see these people putting stuff out there as quote unquote turnkey, and it's not a renovated house, right? It's just happened to be something that has a tenant in it. But your 5-year cost of ownership on that property is going to be pretty great, right? So I don't define that as turnkey. I see that as very transactional. So we're very specific in how we approach the business, but because we wanted to be a service-based business, we're putting out on average a 17 to 18% cash-on-cash return to our investors. They'll come back to us if we're giving them a good product and we're standing behind what we do. And that's where the kind of what I'll call the service-based part of the business is. I can move a house, 50% way through the construction process, which is in some cases now we're starting to try to migrate into some infill new construction. I can actually sell that before I ever break ground. But it just takes a while to establish that investor base. But there are certainly ways to do that. I'm starting to work with other investors now that are bringing me their renovated product, and I'm running it through our model. So that's always an option as well. I've been doing some of that with Jim and Ryan on Three Doors properties, and we've had a lot of great success with it. I can tell you, as long as we're hitting our return thresholds to the investor, that price becomes a lot less meaningless to the investor. They're more worried about that return number. So,
okay, so you said 17 to 18% cash on cash return on average. What type of, and that's really the main criteria. Is there anything else that fits on the turnkey as far as the buying criteria that you're finding?
Yeah, I think from a buying criteria standpoint, what you really want to pay attention to on the front end is, can your rents be at 1% or higher of your back end sales price? That's going to kind of put you into that kind of cash on cash return, and considering your investors using, a levered environment, which majority of our investors do, versus paying cash. But so that's a good kind of threshold. So turnkey certainly doesn't work in just any market, and especially when you're in a market like we're in right now, where frankly values are a little overinflated. So there are markets that have been traditional turnkey markets for me that right now make a lot more sense to retail in, but just because I can't get the rents to be, commensurate with where these back end values are, the back end ARVs. So pay attention to that. I foresee that kind of transitioning back. Those values aren't going to hold as strong as they are today, particularly in certain pockets. So some of those markets will come back around. But
okay. So we got rents at 1% or higher. 17 to 18% is kind of the average you're seeing on cash return. What type of window does that kind of equate to on a sales price typically?
I don't know if I quite with you on that question.
So you like your ARVs, what type of what's your typical price point for properties that you see kind of that fit this mold?
Really our products run anywhere from an ARV of about 60,000, more traditionally, 90 to 120. We start getting into multifamily stuff. It'll go up from there, obviously, more commensurate with rents. But so in that realm, if I've got a 125 house, I'm looking to make sure I can pull that 1250 rent. Of course, we run nice products, so we're typically $200 or more above rent to meter median rents. So that's kind of how we do our calculations there. Frankly, if I can push rent, I know I can push a sale price. And so we've had a lot of success doing that because, again, it's all dialing back to that investor return, much more so than, what the house next door sold for.
Okay. So right at the 1%, and so 60 to 125 has kind of been the sweet spot.
On the single family side, that's kind of the sweet spot.
What does multis go up to?
Really, the sky's the limit. We could easily turnkey $1 million building if it's pulling the rents that are going to make that make sense.
Yeah, and as far as like your buyers, are a lot of them out of state? A lot of them just kind of local, affluent professionals? What's the mix that you have on that?
Well, we got a lot of local folks that have just kind of come to us over the years, back to 2010. I'm still working with that investor from 2010. We just did a 4-family for him. But more and more so, I've established some relationships that have allowed me to really kind of branch out. So we work heavily on the East and West Coast. Last year, we sold to investors in Canada, France, Asia. Working on a deal with somebody in Europe right now. Really, they're coming from all over the globe.
Yeah, so from like a wholesaler standpoint or an investor standpoint, it's really nice to have the turnkey option because when you have this many kind of buyers that just want a product that's already done, that's already turnkey, they're willing to typically pay more for the property than like what a traditional investor would. Is there any, so like as far as the appraised value compared to what these guys are buying for, do you have any stats on that?
Yeah, the majority of our stuff, if it's a levered investment, the appraisal's being done. But we rarely have appraisal issues, and we really are pushing ARVs because, frankly, we can. We're putting out a good product. We're pulling top of the market rents. With good finishes, we're standing behind an inspection on every one of these, a third-party inspection. So, key to that is really making sure that we stand out from everybody else. And pushing a good product. It kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It's all about giving that investor a really good 5-year experience. Now those numbers can change. If I'm in the new construction world, honestly, I can lower those cash on cash returns because, there's the theory that it's all new. So they're not going to have that furnace go out in year 3 or year 4. We do go as far as putting warranty on, every one of our turnkey investments as well. Just really making that first year experience something that we know is pretty bulletproof.
Bob, how do you work with like agents? Like let's say an agent has a client that might be a good fit for your turnkey program. How does that work?
Yeah, that's been mostly what we've experienced lately is agents bringing a lot of investors. They're struggling to find product for folks that want it. So yeah, we bring them in and we make them part of that transaction.
Gotcha. So they basically just need to contact you like, hey, here's the buyer's contact info. What do you got that fits their needs, or like what do you have set up for that?
We keep them involved in the process kind of throughout, just because it is their investor and we want to be respectful to that. And then we just kind of take them through our normal routine.
Okay.
We're just basically a kind of an inventory arm that they may not have today. And we're starting to work more and more. I mentioned this earlier with investors. In some cases, we're doing the renovation. In some cases, they're doing the renovation. But we're just kind of proving to be an outlet because, again, we're usually able to sell this early in the construction process. So I got houses going out next week that, we're only 2 or 3 weeks into construction on, but we're about that halfway mark, and we'll get them out there and get them pre-sold.
Awesome. Okay, so Bob, we had a couple questions come through. So please repeat the name of the book from Scott. Oh man, what book were we talking about? Dare to Lead.
It's called Dare to Lead.
Okay, so Dare to Lead, Renee Brown. What does cash on cash return mean? So I had that question come through.
The return on their levered investment now, you're going to be a minimum of 20 to 25% down.
Hey, Bob, can you start
their return on?
Hey, can you start that over? We had like an audio issue.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So cash on cash return is their true return on their invested dollars. So if they're what you're going to find in this commercial lending environment right now, 20 to 25% is what we're telling our investors they need to put down on these properties. So it's their return on that 20 to 25% that they're putting down.
Yeah. So if you put $0 down, your cash on cash return's infinite, right? But if you put 100% down, it's going to probably be a little bit less. But if you're leveraging your money, you're putting 10% or 20% down, it can be a little bit higher. And we have a estimator that actually calculates cash on cash return in our system in LearnUpon, actually. So there's a line item for it on that. Do you have you ever purchased a turnkey property at retail? So have you ever done a turnkey to yourself or from a different vendor? Have you ever done that? This is a question.
I have not. I guess I've been in the business long enough to know to buy, in wholesale. I do have investors I work with though that I do wholesale to, and then we take over the construction process and then the property management process after that. So it's a little bit of a unique model. The investors I work with that I do that with like it from the standpoint that they'll have a little more equity on the back end, but they're also taking the risk on the renovation. So that's kind of the trade-off. But yeah, typically I'm not buying performing products.
Well, and like there's something that I think is really important that took me a long time to wrap my head around with turnkeys is that I would say to myself, well, why would I buy it at, like why would anyone want to buy a rental property at such a higher price than if you just go out, generate the homeowner lead, negotiate it, get under contract, do the work, you can get a way better deal. Well, the reality is a lot of these people, like if I look at like a doctor, for example, a doctor makes their money, their income by being a doctor. A investor gets a better deal because of all the labor and all the effort that they put in to get the better deal. So when you have someone that has money that wants to invest and diversify into real estate but doesn't have time, my goodness, Turnkey is a phenomenal solution for those individuals. It's a phenomenal win because they can still stay and focus on what they're doing good at. And then they have inventory. They have a chance to build a portfolio without having to do a lot of the work.
Yeah, well said, Jim. I mean, we work with a lot of physicians, and their $10,000 activity isn't trying to figure out, if Joe, the contractor, is doing his job and what's the right price to buy this house at, and so on and so forth. So from that aspect of our business, we're very much servicing people where it doesn't make sense for them to go out and try to do that. So now we work with a lot of active investors, again, just to help them sell their product, and they can go out and buy it at a discount and renovate it. And then we're just nothing more than an option for them to liquidate on the back end.
So if there's any other questions, guys, please feel free to chat on. I think I got to some of the questions that were in the chat. So one thing that I do want to hammer on, guys, is that a difference that I see between experienced investors and people just kind of starting out, and experienced agents for that matter too, is what I see. I see there's a big difference in how a rainmaker and an experienced person thinks compared to a newer person. So when I started out, I'll just talk about me because I don't know anybody else. But when I started out, I'd write an offer on a home with an exit strategy of a flip, and if the homeowner rejected it, okay, on to the next one. The more you can get acclimated and understand different exit strategies, you have much more of an ability to get additional properties under contract that you wouldn't, because now, hey, I think Bob 1%, as long as he gets 17% cash on cash and he gets 1% of the rents on the purchase, you might be able to put a deal together that you otherwise would have to say no to. So there's almost a process. The more I go into this, the deeper I get it, the more knowledgeable, more experience I get. It's just kind of a process where I'm not just looking at a deal from a flip. I'm looking at it from a rental, a flip, an addition, maybe tearing it down, like you just going through all of different stuff and taking the time to do that, because I promise you, there will be deals that you should get that a more experienced person gets because they just looked at it and matched the best exit strategy to it.
Yeah, well said, Jim. I think when there's ambiguity in your exit strategies, it probably should cause you to be more conservative on the front end. But when you have absolute clarity on what your exit looks like, you can certainly be more aggressive and put a deal there that you may not have otherwise. So I think that was well said.
Yeah, so this is definitely Bob's a great resource to kind of leverage and use, guys. Absolutely. And as we're talking about this, I realize I need to connect you with my neighbor who is potentially looking for a turnkey. So I need to.
It's funny how it happens, man. They come out of the woodwork. I got a call yesterday from a guy that we hired as an architect on a big retail project we're doing, and now he wants us to do turnkey. And our inspector that does a lot of our inspections now has come to me, and we're helping him with his first turnkey deal. So, the more you get it out there, what you're doing, people are going to respond to that, because there are just a lot of folks that don't have the time and resources around trying to develop a marketing system, get in front of a homeowner, take the house down, do the renovation, and everything that files into it. And then you got the whole property management side behind that. So, It is a tough business that we're in. It's not for the light of heart, and but when you can get really good at construction and really good at the back end of the business, you are adding value there, and ultimately it goes back to serving people, because they're not buying that piece of junk that they don't know what happened. They're buying something that they know has been gone through and it's got a warranty on it, and they're not going to have a lot of problems.
Bob, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hopping on and sharing some of your knowledge, sharing some of the wisdom. Thanks, buddy. All right, guys. So if you want more info on this particular show, including the video replay, the show notes, etc., all you have to do is go to doorstodeals.com/022. Again, that's doorstodeals.com/022. Go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Take care till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock Doors to Deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.